Going down our agenda, next item is the 2018-2019 budget and drum run.
Here we go.
Here we go. So go right ahead.
Okay, so annually, you are tasked with appointing a budget officer, and then we approve a budget calendar that sets key dates for when our 2018-2019 budget build and meetings will occur. So this draft calendar was sent out to our budget committee, and I got responses from 2 of our 3 lay gentlemen on the committee, and they said no problems, those dates look good for them.
So who do we need to?
Craig Foster.
Okay.
So those dates are May 9th and May 11th, a little bit different and later than we've had in the past to allow for actually some county staff plans.
I pulled it back up this morning, printed it off. Have you guys had a chance to review everything works for your guys' schedules?
When I initially looked at it, I thought it fit okay. I need to revisit, but shouldn't be a problem.
So when do we need to do the appointment tomorrow?
It's,
Is that on the schedule that way? I don't remember. For our budget.
I'm not sure where it's at. I'm not, it might be on for tomorrow. The calendar,
Well, the discussion's on there tomorrow, and I
Okay.
just wanted to know when. I don't remember what the calendar looked like for budget officer.
it's actually, according to the schedule, it is to appoint today,
Okay,
which is the 16th.
well, let's do that.
And so I would say we just
The
stay
9th
with
and
our,
11th budget meetings. Make sure I get it in so I don't put something on top of it.
so I'd say we go ahead and first probably accept the budget calendar and then appoint the budget officer. Go ahead.
so I'm gonna make, if we're gonna look at the budget calendar in a little bit more closer detail, I'm gonna make a suggestion on the February 8th general fund supported open requests. I just started running some budget scenarios this morning, and knowing where our revenues are and the uncertainty around our federal revenues, I'm not sure we should open up for large-scale open requests coming into general fund.
Can I see your budget? I thought I
I
had.
think you're wise.
Oh, I'll borrow.
So I guess I'm asking that we think about what we've done in the past on that process, and instead of kind of calling for projects, it's more internal case-by-case basis, manager working with liaison commissioners, and that's about the extent of it until we have more information on our revenues. I just want to throw that out there for discussion.
You know, I totally agree with you. And the reality is, some people say, Senator Wyden's office said, by this Friday, we should have a clear review, but the conference call I was on yesterday says they're probably gonna bump it out 2 weeks, any type of formal final budget discussions. They're just gonna do a continuing resolution. And embedded in there is the whole pay for and so on and so forth. So I not only agree with you, but I'm not sure we even have those discussions. I think we need to be as conservative as possible this year, regardless of the outcomes, because we have no idea when or if they're going to take any action relative to revenues to counties.
So what I'm asking is I scratch that date off of this calendar and I kind of change some of the terminology for what we discuss on that February 13th meeting.
Yep.
So February 13th, so that's just says.
It stays, we'll talk about general fund assumptions there and methodology for budget preparations, but we won't prioritize or rank open requests at that date.
Okay, so what we have is a draft that's been amended to drop the 2/8 general fund support open request due date. Drop that off of there, and what you will do is work with county departments that may have some things out of the ordinary they could bring forward. This would not be inclusive of non-county departments.
Correct.
good with that?
Well, and it doesn't fall, I don't think, on the calendar, but I chatted with Ann about this a week ago. She kind of got thrown under the bus last year, and, you know, we didn't have the time, you might want to say, to analyze the need to reduce some expenses. So I don't know if today's the appropriate time or not, but I think at some point in time in this process, we need to have Ann put out, under the board's direction, kind of a synopsis of where we're at and what everyone needs to be mindful of. And it would be inclusive of the current year we're in, which everyone's kind of already on alert, but nothing official, and for next year. So that when people are putting budgets together, they sharpen the proverbial pencil a little bit sharper, because we may be in a very unique situation.
What I could help with on that is maybe on that February 13th, actually have some draft language that will go out to the managers with their budget information and their packets that will be out in their hands on March 5th. So we can review that message and make sure it's clear and what we're asking is.
So, I'm always cautious about saying too much out there on reduction, or whenever we have positive, to sort of keep sort of status quo. When do you predict, you say 2 weeks?
By this, what Sarah told me was that they're trying, Senator White and Senator Hatch are trying to attach to must-pass legislation. The government probably shuts down on this Friday, the 19th, without some action taken. But the discussion yesterday from our NACO folks in DC was that they're probably going to look at 2 weeks from now, they'll do a continuing resolution, and 2 weeks from now try to get the committees together to hammer out the details. It's totally unknown right now, but in 2 weeks we'll have, well, this Friday we'll have an indicator, and in 2 weeks, if what they think is going to happen happens, we'll have another indicator. Unfortunately.
So by the 13th of February, we should know quite a bit more. You'll be working on some assumptions between now and then.
Right, so the cash flow scenario that you're seeing in your packets every month is what we're anticipating that continuing resolution amount to fund us on PILT. To be honest, continuing, because we don't know what that reduction is for that national fully funded level. To be honest, the continuing resolution actually is in our favor compared to the fiscal year 18 Department of Interior budget that they proposed.
Yeah.
So continuing resolution is actually okay for us, not great, it doesn't solve anything, but it's better than what they propose as far as a budget item.
Okay.
So we're watching, but that scenario that is in your cash flow prediction, you know, it's the best guess right now, but we're planning on that reduction.
So a more in-depth, thorough conversation on the assumptions day would be the appropriate time.
Very, very much so. I think that would be.
And I'm starting to run scenarios now, so I'll have good, you know, best guess numbers that way, and beforehand for you to review and study.
Okay. So I entertain a motion to set the budget calendar as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the budget calendar as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. And now we need to appoint the budget officer.
You guys just let me know who that is, I'll do that later.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, assuming, I don't think it's a stretch, that Ann is willing to be the budget officer again for the 2018-2019 budget year.
I'll second it. Is
Motion.
that agreeable with you?
Yes, okay.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Ann as the budget officer for this next budget year. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ann. Appreciate that very much.
Thank
So
you.
we will take that off of the agenda for tomorrow. All taken care of today. We have our budget calendar taken care of. Mr. Berman, you're next. Thanks, Ann. This is CenturyTel lease agreement. This is, as you can, well, I'll let you speak, I guess, as you continue cleaning everything up. This is some of them.
This is our agreement, or our site lease agreement with CenturyTel for their communication on Black-Cap. And we just cleaned the new agreement last year, and I'm just cleaning up the agreement, and we need to get it signed and sent back to CenturyTel. That's why it's dated the way it is.
That's why it's dated this way from a year ago.
Yes. Just cleaning it up, it just got overlooked when it come in, and,
But the good news is we're still receiving the funds.
yes.
There you go.
They've been paying the bill.
Yes, yes. They did ask for the agreement though, so I said, okay, I'll do that.
So we'll continue that on for tomorrow, unless you guys have further questions. And then the other thing that Dave has is, it's actually ran through legal counsel. This is a continuing on of what was brought forward on policy for the Board of Commissioners. At the last meeting, I mentioned the right person for that to go through would be Dave. Got the policy today, draft all the commissioners and a couple other departments, and Dave asked for the draft to be rewritten, and he has that for us to act on, possibly act on tomorrow, unless you guys have additions or anything to the draft policy. Did you have anything to add, Dave?
No, they probably added it as I did it with David. That I had.
And I always call attention for the folks on camera. This is a policy. Can you describe what the policy is?
Well, the policies for the county property policy that we have, like how we dispose of county property, you know, if it has any value, if it don't have any value, so forth. Desks, just furniture, whatever. Miscellaneous throughout. So we can't just throw it away, can't just give it away. There's a procedure to surplus property, if there's any value, if there's no value. So we didn't have nothing in place, so we needed to get a surplus policy put together.
We came to talk to ourselves, but we need to be explicit for the audience.
Yes.
So Dave, thank you for working with legal counsel. If you would probably have Mel, or if you put that on county letterhead, the policy and whatever. And,
I have it. We did that and gave it to her.
oh, okay, well, perfect. And tomorrow we should build
There
it.
even I even put signatures on there, just to.
If they're already signed for us, good.
Yeah, so we should bill act on that tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll carry that on until tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Caitlin, you're so patient. Now then, just if our meetings and everything, if you need to be timed, I know you're very busy at work, I didn't put these on. If you need to be a specific time, you can get that with Mel. And then today was quite a long time for you to wait for it to come out.
No worries.
Apologize for
Sorry. So I'm here for you this morning to give you an overview of the BOCA CFA grant for 2017-2019. The Department of Justice Crime Victim Services Division provides these two types of fundings to provide on a biennial basis to serve crime victims of Lake County. So BOCA is Victims of Crime Act, which is federal dollars. CFA stands for the Criminal Fine Account, which is state funding. They combined it, put it in one application, so we don't have to do two separate applications. It just makes it smoother. So the primary purpose of these funds for Lake County is it supports the part-time victim advocate position, which is currently held by Sue Alves up in our office. It also supports a portion of Marla and my salary, since it's a part-time position for Sue. We fill in when she's not there.
And then there's also a little bit of funding for training and office supplies for the victim advocate, specific training opportunities or the office supplies that we need for the crime victims. So I'm just using round numbers. This is about $110,000 over the course of 2 years. It runs from October 1st of 2017 through September 30th of 2019. We have been given the go-ahead from the division to obviously continue the program while we get the grant agreement in place. They've been very behind because they do a lot of different grants this kind of time of year. So we are in the clear to continue providing those services even though we don't have the agreement in place. So, and just the cover page, there is one typo on the date action required by. That's the wrong year. It meant to be January 19th of 2018. And the only reason for that is we do have reporting at the end of this year, so if we can get or at the end of this month, I'm sorry. So if we get the grant agreement in place, I'll be able to do that on time rather than negotiating a further, February deadline for that. I did send the grant agreement to Commissioner Kessner as our board liaison, to Mr. Bailey, who's the county counsel, along with Ann. We got the agreement on Wednesday afternoon. I sent it to them first thing on Thursday morning, and I haven't heard back, so I don't think there's any issues. It's pretty boilerplate agreement language regarding the use of federal dollars and the state dollars, so.
I got one little question.
Sure.
Familiar with the Victims of Crime Act. Lost my remembrance of a criminal fine account.
So I believe that's the funds that the state collects on the fines that folks have to pay when they receive a judgment of a fine, related to traffic or related to, in this case, it's for criminal judgments that they've received, they have to pay $200 on a misdemeanor fine or something like that.
But if it comes back to us as a grant,
Correct.
and what is our utilization of that fund when it comes back?
So both of the funds are used to support the items that I mentioned. The lucky part for us is that VOCA requires a 25% match, which for this, I think it was about $21,000. We can use the CFA dollars as that match since those are state funds. So that helps us with that. But both of the funds are used for the staffing for providing the services along with training and the minimal amount of office supplies. So.
Yep. We have it on the rules agenda.
Have it on for tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We're
you.
able to get it approved and signed.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Caitlin.
Thank you. Next is computer training, HIPAA, and law library update. Melanie Kuzini.
So, there are several employees that haven't completed IT training for the appropriate use of software and county property. I'm proposing that all employees, old and new, complete an IT training program in the very near future to ensure that all county employees are properly informed on the appropriate usage of county IT property. The IT training will take approximately 15 minutes to complete, and we can use a group training format. I motion to initiate the training sessions for all employees in the next week or two.
And you coordinated this with Brad Brown, and
Yes.
they'll get this set up. And then when people go through this training, they will sign off and acknowledge all that. Well, we've had this in place for some time, but we've got a little bit lax of making sure new employees and even some of the less old employees have been through all the training.
Right, that's why I recommend we do a little refresher training. It'll only take 15 minutes, we can fill the boardroom up with as many people as possible. Josh says it'll take about a few minutes, well, I'll have the document for them to sign, and then that way everyone will be compliant with you.
When are you wanting to do this?
The next week or two.
Okay, so you need a nod from the Board of Commissioners and then send out an email with available times where people can be there.
And you're gonna do more than one?
Yeah, I would like to have, hopefully next week I could have 2 sessions available, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And then the next week, we'll have one in the morning, one in the afternoon, just so people have options and it won't interfere with their scheduling.
So how do we reach out to the departments that's not within the general fund up here, the road department? Make sure that they're North Lake, we have a public health person up there. And then we have to accommodate for jail for the jailers that work many different hours. So that we need to really think about the uniqueness of making sure that everybody gets an opportunity. The department might be that it has to be set up out there, or something like that, Melanie.
Okay.
Well, and Commissioner Winters is bringing up a good, because we didn't talk about that in our group sitting first part of last week. But on the north end, our employees up there, perhaps Josh could just schedule a time that worked for them and do it up there.
Yeah.
And as you said, with the road department, maybe we could do it out there. Try and be as accommodating as possible. The 15 minutes is, just not that much time.
Same with public health. We could, I don't know how hard it'd be to do it over there, but they can sort of keep an eye on if clients come in or anything at the same time. So just sort of work through those uniqueness and see if that's something that can be worked with.
Okay. I will speak to Josh and I will bring something for you guys tomorrow.
I'm good with a nod of approval
Yeah.
and just make it happen.
And scratch it off of tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep, so go ahead and get that done. Now you'll be working with Jay also because that's part of
Yes.
new hires sign off that paper we talked about.
Mhm.
So, okay,
I've already touched base.
all right.
Okay, thank you.
Got computer training now then.
Okay, second order of business, I would like to bring the public health up to speed and make them HIPAA compliant. There are 20,000 audits slated this year for Washington and Oregon. ATS and the compliance group will provide all the documents, policies, and procedures needed to pass a HIPAA audit. And the compliance group has passed 100% of their audits to date. And even if someone comes to them and says, we're going to audit you, just knowing that they're working on this helps reduce their risk because they're already trying to become compliant. The program will cost $5,500 and we can enroll up to 25 county employees. We would like to enroll all employees that could possibly come into contact with any personal health information. And then I have a proposal from Brad Brown and the compliance group for you guys to look at. And I have funds secured and approved through Ann. Since we are not using the monies to relocate the server room, that'll cover the cost of the HIPAA training.
Those funds are in the budget that you manage on the
Yes,
IT budget.
yes, uh-huh.
So there are funds that you show that's available within your budget that we can use.
And I double checked that.
And a quick question on the side, we're not relocating the server room.
Right.
And why?
It's more cost effective to move the pipes. And so the building and facilities department is going to fund the pipe relocation.
Excellent.
It's a great thing.
Very good.
Those pipes are not asbestos.
They are.
Getting a plumber to tackle that may be a challenge.
We're going to cap them for the time being until we have a plan in place to deal with the asbestos removal.
The facility manager's not here, but he's working with somebody that's qualified to be able to do that and get that agreement together. And so
Yeah,
Dave
makes a lot of
Funny
sense
can
cut
speak
off
to
the
that
pipe.
part. So continue that on tomorrow, since we're going to be expending dollars
Okay.
in the training. is not only public health, but veteran services and others for that cost up to 25, for anybody that's even potentially around it, but
Right.
screens or anything should take that. So now we're down to the law library update.
Yeah, Friday, we started installing a computer and software for the law library, for Judge Nichols. That, we have all the software, they have access right now to 5 approved sites. They cannot, since this is on our server, they cannot access the internet freely. They can go to these, law library sites and they can look up information based on whatever they need to do to research their case. And I don't think anyone's used it yet, but they have a printer, they have 2 types of software, and it should be ready to utilize today. Josh got it set up on Friday, and they are paying for that out of the law library.
When Melanie and I and Josh met with the judge, the concern was on the IT side to make sure that they can't get into any of our network and
Yeah.
everything. So there was a cost, it's about a $400 cost if I remember right, that will block that, plus some of the work that needs to be done by Josh. That will be funded out of, I think it's software, wasn't software, was it $400, what was it, Melanie?
The final cost for software was $500.
Okay. so my
And
number's off.
then he asked for a printer and toner, and that was an additional $133 in total for both of those pieces, so.
So when it comes out of that fund, and this is a good thing. At first, we didn't really understand, we was concerned about the public being able to access our network, but they were able to make sure that they're not able to. So that's just an update, Melanie, because that's a
Yes.
smaller cost out of that fund. Any other updates from you, Melanie?
No, I don't believe so. We're working on a policy, so maybe I do. We're working on a policy for Veriato training and like who will be able to access information. Nothing is written yet, so I will bring that before you at a later date.
Okay. All right, liaison updates. Do you have any liaison updates?
Eventually, start.
Okay.
I've already touched on is one of the items, the Red Rock, relative to the funding and the likelihood of an announcement at some point in time. That'll be, as you know, Commissioner Warners, because you sit in on those monthly calls, that'll be at the Red Rock to announce, but it is looking better and better on the financial side of things. NACO Public Lands, I had that conference call yesterday. It was about an hour and a half with 5 different members of the NACO Public Lands committee across the nation. We had the chair of our public lands, Tommy Martin, out in Colorado, and Todd Devlin from Prairie County, Montana. Mark Owens was on out of Harney, Jack Lytle out of Utah, Jonathan Sheffield, our legislative staff for NACO, and myself, talked about a lot of the issues that we were just briefly talking with Ann about for Secure Rural Schools funding, PILT funding, and we even got into the management aspect of public lands. It's not unique to Lake County or Oregon, the concerns. There was a lot of chest beating, you might say, about what needs to happen. So I'll keep you guys updated as we move along with that. I'll be meeting with the state forester's executive administrative assistant. Reached out to me last week. He'd like for the 2 of us to be able to sit down and talk about a few things, and I'll share those after we've chatted about them. I don't know Peter real well, but hopefully we can get together sometime soon. Our workforce office, I think, and Dave is not here, but it's up and ready to go, and it sounds like the workforce program at KCC is planning on being here by the first of the month. They've been here and viewed it, and they like it. It's all set to go.
Good.
Which is going to be a great addition for the community to have it here. I'd asked Melanie to remind me about a support letter from the board for the Forest Service and BLM here in the interagency area on the air tanker analysis that the regions, the state office and regional office are doing on air tanker locations. Once again, I mean, this happened during my career, this happened right after that, and they're at it again. They're looking at efficiencies and trying to decide if they should shut down some of the existing or relocate some of the bases to other areas. We're right in the bullseye again here for our base in Klamath Falls as far as a perimeter air tanker base. So if you guys are in agreement, I'll work with Melanie and have her work with some of the information folks, including fire staff, for this interagency area on what kind of wording would best fit for our support letter to them.
That's real important.
Yeah, yeah. So, do have an upcoming WIFLIC meeting. I'm not 100% certain on my attendance. Jonathan asked me yesterday. I didn't go to the one in November back in DC. This is a pretty big one, just because a lot of the political appointments have been made and a lot of the players in place, and the impacts to us here in Oregon and Lake County are pretty significant, so I'll keep you updated on whether or not I'm going to go to that. We try and schedule it around the Ledge Conference, the spring meeting, which they've done, but they scheduled it a little bit goofy because all the agency administrators for the Department of Interior, as well as the Chief of the Forest Service, are meeting all week long the week prior to the Ledge Conference, and that's when I wanted at the tail end of that to have our WIFLIC meeting. I'm just one voice out of about 15 of us. It didn't work for them, and so they're going to do it in the first part of the next week. Jonathan would like me to be there at the Ledge Conference, give an update to NACO Public Lands as well as the Western Interstate region. And as I told him, it's going to be kind of hard to give an update about a meeting 2 days after the Ledge Conference is over. So I'm going to stay tuned on that one. Seemed like there was a couple other things that I didn't write down, but I'll stop with that. Just lots of stuff going on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chester, you have anything?
Just a couple things. I'll be leaving today around noonish, go to Wilsonville OIT for cybersecurity advisory council meeting. The Association of Oregon Counties was so nice to appoint me to. That thing is going to go on and on. I didn't sign up. I thought it was more of a startup agenda. And from there, I'll go on up to Portland to visit with the USDA RUS director on some items relating to infrastructure and grants availability. We still, on the internet, we still have Summer Lake to address, and we still have infrastructure at the end of the fiber to plus mega to address. We'll be looking at what grant opportunities that somebody could apply for on those. So I'll be gone until it'll probably be Friday late afternoon before I can get back. At the end of the month, 31st, we have the last of the smoke management review committee meeting, and I think we'll round it up with pretty much the recommendations of the support letter that you guys gave around to kind of loosen up the ability to do some prescribed burning so we don't have the massive fires as frequently. And I'm still working with Annette Levy of Regional Solution on options maybe to help the Plus and Adel School Board of Directors to help them with their match in some fashion. And I still haven't had a chance to fine tune the template for the TV white space support. I'll probably get that done in a motel room by going. That's all I have at this time.
Okay, this afternoon we have a wolf depredation committee meeting. It'll be the first one that Melanie will be putting together. The funds that are available have to be expended by the end of January. If they're not expended, then they go back to the fund, and that's not always a bad thing, but we want to make sure and look what we have there. Also have a fair board meeting tonight. I believe we'll probably be coming forward with a recommendation for a new fair board member, as we have that one that's vacant. Hopefully that's going to be on our agenda tonight. The 31st of January is whenever I set up the tour of Juniper Ridge and John Day, the respite care up there with Kimberly Lindsay and Judge Meyer. I sent out my email to town, to the hospital, to all law enforcement and adult corrections. We're getting a little bit of response back. The hopes is that I'm just trying to convene the people. The hopes is that, especially through law enforcement, opens up a good working relationship for the stepping up type thing, so that mental health and law enforcement and the hospital all sort of come together and recognize some of the mental illness issues as first contact is made out there, and hopefully someday for there to be respite care here, which in turn would hopefully reduce the number of people going into the jail that can be challenging for jail, and hopefully it would start some educational process and trainings so that people are able to pinpoint some of the uniqueness of dealing with some people with some mental illness issues. So encouraged about that. Hope I get some pretty good participation, but if we get 3 or 4, that's better than 0, and it starts the process. It's a nationally known stepping up through NACO. So the boilerplate and everything is there. Klamath County's done the resolution. I don't know if we'll get to where we do that resolution, but if the players are interested, we'll get there. So encouraged to work on that. I'm also, I mentioned this one time before, I will be setting in a forum to part of the selection process for the regional manager for ODOT. That'll be in March, mid-March, towards the end. I'll be in Bend for a day and a half for that. Encouraged if you guys reach out to anybody, or if anybody reaches out to you that's applying for that position. If some characteristics come forward that you guys like, be sure and let me know as I set on that down. It'd be good to have. So with that, pretty much all I really have. Go ahead, sir.
One of the things you mentioned, the fair board meeting tonight for possible appointment or recommendation, do you want to put that on tomorrow's agenda just on the off chance?
You know, I haven't had a chance to really talk with Ronnie, but why don't I just, if we do have a recommendation, we'll just do an add-on in the morning. So it's a potential add-on depending on where the fair board is at.
Well, I got for topic, how's the kitchen renovation going?
The kitchen renovation on Sunday, there was supposed to be somebody there to clean the hood. There's been real glitch in as dealing with insurance companies and trying to get them to timely respond, timely write the check. So we as a fair board are very disappointed because we've lost revenue because the kitchen hasn't been taken care of yet. But we're not able to go in there and do anything. When I say we, our director and our staff out there. Until the insurance responds. So it's been a hurry up and wait process that is, we're not overly happy with, I'll say. So, yeah. Anything else to come before us? We will adjourn at Oh, I'm sorry, Terry, did you have some more, or you just sitting in for this
Just sitting in, just listening.
exciting meeting that we
I
had?
had lunch at 11:30, so I'm just listening to what you guys are doing.
All right, thank you, Terry. So we'll adjourn at 11:12.